Hi there, I'm Wade. Welcome to AI Under the Hood, LLM integration. We have invested heavily in making AI available in FileMaker to help get values from your data in FileMaker databases. It has been done in the way that you would expect it from Claris and from Apple. It's easy to use and integrated just where needed. The feature I'm going to show you in the section are not final, primarily for ETS. Your feedback and critiques are valuable to us. Please share your thoughts with us. Here are some key takeaways for the section. First, you will know how to chat with the database, just similar to ChatGPT. And you will know what an embedding vector is and how to get embedding vectors from LLM to FileMaker databases. We support both binary format and text format. With embedding vectors, you will be able to do new innovative solutions not possible before. So you will know how to do semantic search. Semantic search actually is based on the embedding vector and with cosine similarity. And so semantic search performs search based on the meaning of natural language besides the keyword search or regular expression you can have today. Then you will know how to do retrieval augmented generation, the so-called RAG. Simply put, that you can chat with documents besides chat with database. So here is a high-level overview of architecture we have enhanced to make the LLM integration. First, we built an add-on called App Assistant to help you to chat with the database. So the add-on using the stuff you're familiar with, HTML, JavaScript, FileMaker script step, and the FileMaker calculation formulas. So it could be a good starting point for you, and you can customize if you need. And we built a whole new set of the FileMaker script step to support LLM integration, along with the calculation functions. Inside the Draco database engine, we have built an LLM access layer to encapsulate those common protocol and functionalities inside. And we use a handle approach. Most of you probably familiar with the ESS feature we introduced maybe 15 years ago. So remember we can talk to that. You can integrate with other DBMs like Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server. So we have a handle inside database engine. So we use a similar approach here. So we build a GTP handle inside it to talk to the OpenAI GPT, that's a GPT 3.5 Turbo, GPT-4, GPT 1106, up to your choice. And we build Anthropic handle to talk to Anthropic for the cloud LLM. And we build the open source handle so to allow you to talk to open source LLM if you choose to kind of set up your own LLM server. So underneath it, we also enhance other modules to support it. For example, in the SQL module, we improve in the SQL parser, and we add the DDL, the data definition language there, to encapsulate the schema that's needed to send to LLM. The reason you need a DDL is to support chat with database. We need to let LLM know what kind of your miniature schema is. So then LLM will be able to generate correct SQL statement for corresponding to the user's natural language prompt. So later I will go through some detail about the DDL. But in the way you just needed to do a little bit things, and the heavy lifting actually will be done by the Draco database engine for you. So we support the embedding vectors. So most of you are probably familiar with the search index, sort index, the Draco database engine has for years. So embedding vector actually, in certain way, you can think that's just another kind of index. But this index actually is based on the natural language meaning. But the dimension is much higher. And we have support for the LLM account. So each one has the endpoint access endpoint of the LLM server, and including your API access token. And so in Draco database engine, you can have a multiple LLM account running at one time, if you like to. So with that, then the Draco database engine will be able to allow you to talk to OpenAI LLM or Anthropic LLM or open source LLM, or you want to have some of them access at the same time. And once you build a solution, it will be able to run on FileMaker Pro, Go, WebDirect, Script Engine, Data API, or even Cloud, if applicable. And we make that the cross-platform on the OS we support, Mac OS, iOS, Windows, and Ubuntu. So now I'm going to show you a quick demo to chat with the database. What you see is a familiar FileMaker Pro with a contact database. So the app assistant is the add-on. So this modify the record. So I have a John Doe here. So John Doe just recently promoted. So I update it to new title direct, and let's check the app assistant setting. So I'm going to talk to the GPT-4 with my API key. And in the action, I need to select query. So because I want to chat with database, I want to set scope of database only. So don't worry about the option. I will go through detail with you. Okay, so now I have a setting I want. I double check. I have everything for John Doe. John Doe work for ACME. I have a phone number, email, and so on. Then I click the app assistant. It pop up the window. So I start asking question. What company does John Doe work for? So it chat with database, get to the ACME. I continue to ask what's the position. So remember, I update to director. If I direct, I keep asking email. Pay attention, I don't need to ask what's John Doe's position or what's John Doe's email. I understand I'm asking for John Doe, not for Peter, not for Mary. So now I want to show you the DDL. So now if you want to debug or curious, you can repeat the question. Now you see this is the data definition language which Draco database engine generate for you sent to LLM. So you can see that that's using the industrial standard SQL statement. And we also have a including history. So you can use that OD log, so including message response and the token used. And about who did that on what time. And for admin, if you want to delete it, it definitely can delete it. Yeah. So that's a quick demo. We chat with database. So you can chat with database, and you also can debug it to see the DDL, to see the SQL. Thank you. So now let's take a look at some settings of the app assistant. So from the top, the account name you can specify any account name you like. And the model you specify another model. Because I'm talking to OpenAI, I'm using GPT-4, so I just type GPT-4. That is case sensitive and also need the minus in between. Yeah. And the endpoint is well known, so you don't need to enter it. We know that, so we can handle the endpoint for you. But you do need to enter your API key. And actions, there are 5 actions available for you to choose. What you just saw is dump DDL. You can also choose dump SQL if you are curious about what SQL got sent from LLM to FileMaker Draco database engine. Now, if some people make some complicated prompt, sometimes it could be more than one SQL. So if there is one SQL, you dump SQL, you will see one. If there are more than one, it will give you all the SQL we have been exercised. The option now means you don't want to do chat with the database. You just want to do like ChatGPT like, or you want to do the RAG, the data I will show you the chat with document. And the next two, one is a query, another one is a raw query. So the difference of these two are both for chat with database. The difference is the raw query primarily just give you the results directly from Draco database engine. Yeah. And query will send that result to LLM to format it with natural language. Yeah. So that's up to you which one you want. Yeah. The scope has two options. One is database only, the other one is no limit. So as we all know, the LLM is powerful. However, LLM has a tendency of hallucination. So if you design a solution, you don't like hallucination, you want to limit your user only to the database, the Chatwin database, you can pick the database only. Yeah, so we try to cut it out with the hallucination. Stream mode has two modes, on or off. So if you pick on, it will send the data output continuously to the UI. So instead of the user waiting there, because sometimes the LLM take a long time to process. So if you use the stream mode off, the user sometimes will see the pitch ball keep running there 30 minutes, 1 minute. Yeah. So in general speaking, the stream mode on, if you expect the long output, it's more user friendly. Sliding window 3 means it will send the 3 prior prompt and completion pair besides the current prompt. So that's the way to let it keep a context. And I think some of you might ask me a question, say why you pick 3? What's the optimal number? So here is I don't know the optimal number for all solutions. So for now, just let you pick. Maybe later we can find some pseudo optimized solution. And so right now, let you pick. One reason is the more you send over to the LLM, they will charge more based on tokens. And also the thing is, the more you send over, the processing time is longer. Right? So here the demo I show you, basically I use the 3. On the left-hand side, the query table, you see there are 4 table occurrences. So the Draco database engine will give you the list. It check the engine and find out how many table occurrences you have. And so we'll print out here. What you need to do, just need to put the checkbox on those you need. And I would recommend you only pick the minima set. Right? So the reason is the first, again, the LLM, I assume you use the one near charge, not your own free one. So they charge by token. The second thing is the more you send, the more stuff you send over, it takes a long time to process. And if not necessary, why you want to do that? Right? And another thing, another consideration, some of you, the schema might have some IP concern, right? So you don't want to really send too much, right? And the low part, the custom instruction, you can use it for prompt engineering if you need. So you can put the actual instruction or put some example. So one shot and the many shot. So in here, the Grail text have some kind of example you can try out. And if you have some actually in early ETS, I saw some people make a very good use of it and have some great results. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about DDL. So first, what you need to change is you need to pick the necessary tables. And just like I put a checkbox over, you pick those you need. And also inside the table, you need to choose the necessary field. You have an option. If you don't choose, then the DDL will send all the field of your table over. And I saw some people's solution, some table have more than 100 fields. So that's probably not a good idea to do that. So to choose the necessary field, so you can go through this field annotation. Let me show you the screenshot. So here is a screenshot from the managed database. So I have this KF underscore player. So in the common field, I put this bracket, LLM bracket tag to let DDL understand I want to include this field into the DDL for this table. So once you add 1, the DDL will just follow your instruction. So if you put only 1, it's just 1. You put 10, it will include 10. And whatever annotation you put after the bracket, LLM bracket, that the annotation will send as a comment along with inside the DDL. So the purpose for that one is to let LLM understand what you mean for this field, the minimum schema. Consider the people can create whatever name in there, and sometimes maybe not really that makes sense. So or could be confusing. So that the text, whatever you put in here, since the LLM very good in natural language, so you put a good annotation there. The LLM help LLM make correct decision. So let me show you another example. In here, I have a calculation field score. This score basically calculate the best basketball score of a quarter. So you can see the calculation is sum up all the 3-pointers, 2-pointer, and free throws. So you can include in calculation field for DDL. And the same, I put the bracket, LLM bracket in there, and I put the annotation scores of a quarter. And a game has several quarters. So that's very important here to let LLM know that. So because this is a one-to-many relationship, particularly in this solution. A game sometimes has 3 quarters, sometimes 4 quarters, sometimes 6 quarters. Well, don't ask me why. That's not my database. But however, once you put this annotation there, and send it to LLM can generate correct aggregation SQL statement, and regardless of how many quarters you have for your game, it will give you a correct result. Okay, so here are some tips for to have a good DDL. So first, add the bracket LLM bracket tag in the field comment along with a short description. And this short description actually is for LLM to understand the meaning of your field and the schema of your field. So if you don't do this, that might still work, but the thing is that remember it will send all your field for a table over. And the second one is specify primary key and the foreign key. So this is for the relationship. So if you run your solution to check with database and you find out you have relationship and you find out the result is incorrect, and when you dump the SQL, you see a lot of nested SQLs that potentially, because this one doesn't specify right. So especially like a GPT, when we test it, if you're not sure about the primary key, foreign key relationship, it has a tendency to generate nested SQL. So nested SQL, sometimes you still get correct results, but on the other hand, as you know, the nested SQL is more expensive than joint SQL in general. And describe the relationship one-to-one or one-to-many. Technically speaking, one-to-one is the default one. You don't need to specify that unless, say, in the schema, it could be confusing. And if you have one-to-many relationship, please specify that. The example I showed you before, I specify one-to-many in the scores field. You can specify that in the foreign key as well. If you specify foreign key, it basically, the LLM will understand for this child table actually one-to-many. Again, have the multiple quarters. And avoid fields with the same name for different table for the one DDL. Think about this. This potential, if you say you have schema like that's also confusing to human being. Right? Consider when you in discussion in a meeting, right? There are several tables have the same field name. Then when people asking about here, then which one? So the same thing that if you do have that, the LLM potentially can be confused. And this all valid item for field with a value list associated. So if you have very specific the value list item for a particular field, and if you can list that in the annotation, that will really help in LLM to make a good decision to generate correct SQL statement for the user's prompt. and don't include the summary field. Now, as you know, the FileMaker summary field working on font set, right? And LLM, very difficult, if say not impossible, to figure out which font set for your summary field. On the other hand, if you specify clearly the foreign key, basically a parent-child relationship, and you specify the one-to-one, one-to-many clearly, in most of cases, the LLM will be able to generate good aggregation function for you to get the same kind of summary you need. And so another thing is to use the chat database with LLM. In general speaking, if your database schema is normalized, that's work better with LLM. Okay, so now let's take a look at the LLM prompt script step. So this script step is the primary one to check with database. The app assistant basically call this script step to perform it. And to use the LLM prompt, you need to call set LLM account script step first. So the example I give here is I have a set LLM account. The first parameter is account name, and just like an app assistant. And second parameter I specify the provider is OpenAI. And third parameter, I have my API key. So once you execute this script step, this account information will go into the hash table of Draco database engine. Yeah, so you just need to set it once for the lifespan of Draco database. And the data script step can just refer to the account. Yeah. And here is an example of LLM prompt script step. So you can see the first parameter account point to GPT, which was before. And second parameter I specify GPT-4. And third parameter is the primary one. That's the content of the prompt. So I get it from a field. And for the content itself, there are two choices. One is you can give a plain text, plain text with natural language. And another one is you can use a JSON object. So the example I have here, the JSON object have a key messages, and the value is a vector of JSON object. So the first one is the previous prompt. The second one is the previous completion. The third one is the current prompt. So you can have a multiple set in there. So remember the sliding window 3 from the app assistant. I have 3, right? So if you have more than three chat before, right, then you will see the 3 previous most recent prompt and the completion show up in the JSON structure. And for the data table specify this, so this one have 3 options. So you specify the table occurrence to be included in a DDL. You can pick from list, or you can specify by name, or you can then inject your customized DDL. For example, you use a dump DDL I showed you before, and then you modify it. Then you can use the customized DDL to inject it. Instead, they generate a new one. In case if you see some problem, you don't want to go to field annotation to change it, regenerate. So you can use a customized DDL. And here is the specified tables. So what you need to do, just like before, you put the checkbox on the table occurrence you need. And you might notice there are 5 more tables in here than the app assistant. That's because the app assistant creates 5 more tables. And app assistant is smart enough. There's no reason to send the app assistant schema to the LLM. So we don't need to waste your money to do that. And the actions, there are 5 actions. So basically, that's the exact same 5 options possible to pick as the app assistant. And query scope is exactly the same, the database only or non-limited. Right? And stream mode on-off also the same. Response is where you can store your response. So the response, you can store it in the FileMaker field or in a variable. And prompt parameter is optional. In this example, I set the seed to 101. The format basically is a simple JSON format. So I set the seed number to 101. This one for GPT actually this is a recent improvement they made during November last year. So once you set the seed number, you will set the seed of the random number generation of GPT. Yeah. So if you need, sometimes if your solution, if you wanted the most deterministic results, you can set the seed number to a fixed number, and you can set another parameter called temperature. For GPT, the temperature 0 means the most deterministic, and 1.0 means the most creative. And for different LLM, actually there are different definitions. So some of them from -1 to 1. So when you use a different LLM, you need to check their document. But again, this one, the prompt parameter is optional. So you don't need to set it if you don't need. The web viewer script is also optional. So the app assistant basically uses the web viewer script to communicate with web viewer, and WebDirect can leverage that as well. So once you kind of set up your solution, start chat with the database, sometimes you might need to debug, or maybe you're just curious what happening between the LLM and the Draco database engine. So we have this debug log mechanism. So here is a screenshot like I did before. So you can see you can see the SQL statement that coming from the LLM to FileMaker Draco database engine. We create a new script step, LLM debug log. So you can use that to control when to start, when to turn on, when to turn off. And you also, if you don't like the default name, you can save to the different file name you like. You can also set it in a verbose mode if you like. Okay, so the next topic is embedding vectors. So embedding that vector is a very exciting feature from LLM. So what embedding vector is, numerical representation of some text or document in a continuous vector space. So this definition, technically speaking, needed to update. Majority of LLM actually going to support multiple model. So what that means is that besides the large language model, it can some of them already right now can support like image, audio, video. So that then the numerical representation could be some beyond the text. But however, in this section, we just stick with this definition. The one I show you actually, the embedding vector actually means some text. And to get the embedding vector into a FileMaker database, you need to create a field to store it. So there are two options. That example I show you here, the binary embedding field, I create it as a simple container. So if that's a container, the embedded vector will store in binary format. And if you create like the embedding here and create as a text field, the embedding vector stored there will be text format. I highly recommend you use the binary format because the binary format, the processing time much faster and it costs less in storage. And here is an embedded vector I got from OpenAI before. You see quite a lot of numbers, and actually it does have a lot of numbers. So the dimension is 1536, 1536. So I cannot print all the numbers for you. That could be more than 10 pages. And for now, we store that as a double. So they are 15 for the particular vector. there are 1536 doubles. So we have tried to use the 14 point, but sometimes the calculation seems to have lose some precision. So for now, we just cite it to the results. So just use a little bit more storage and memory for you. And if you notice that you see the number are all quite small. You don't see any number bigger than 1 or smaller than -1. The reason is from OpenAI, all the embedding vector you get are normalized. A normalized embedding vector, normalized vector simply means the length of the vector is 1. So the number basically you cannot. If you see something bigger than 1, that means that the embedding vector is not normalized. And please pay attention. Don't mix the embedding vector from different models. So Jekyll database engine allow you to connect to multiple LLM at the same time. But it's fine. Say you have one table connect to get embedding vector from one LLM and another table to get from another LLM, and you do a comparison. But please don't mix them. You mix them, you might get some unexpected result. And here is a script step you can use to retrieve the embedding vector. So LLM embedded, first parameter, again, the same is the account. Second parameter, model. You need to specify model to get embedding vector. Please pay attention. Here, I use the text embedding 8.002. So even you talk to OpenAI, you don't get embedding vector from GPT-3, GPT-4. It's a text embedding 8.002. And the third parameter input text is where your natural language text you want to generate embedding vector. And the last one, the answer, is where you want to store your embedding vector. So you can store in a field or in a variable. If you store the field is a container field, the embedding vector will be in binary format. If a text field, that will be text format. And if you specify a variable, the variable 1 will be text format. And correspondingly, we have a calculation functions to get embedding vector. So if you use a calculation function to get, by default, we return a binary format for you because binary format is faster. Okay, so basically you use the script step or calc function get the embedding vector. What is 1536? So it's definitely high dimension and dense. And because we support 2 formats, so we provide the 2 calc function to help you convert between these 2 formats if you have to. For example, if you want to export, then you probably want to export with the text format. So then the embedding data as file will convert text format into binary format. Embedded data as text will convert from binary format to text format. And as you need to get embedding vector for the table, so we provide another script step to help you to say use one script step, and we'll get the whole record for the table for you. So the syntax is very similar to the LLM embedding vector. So LLM bulk embedding and the parameters are very similar, but the difference is this one we use a dispatch queue multi-thread and try to get the embedding vector for all records in your table as soon as possible. However, most LLM providers have throttling mechanism. For example, OpenAI have 8191 token limit, and for tier 1 account have 500 RPM limit. So, but you don't need to worry about that. If we encounter this kind of rate limited, token limited, we'll try to back off, slow down a little bit, but still try to get all your embedding vector with one script step, unless it encounters some photo error. Otherwise, you will try to finish it in one shot. Okay, so the next topic is cosine similarity. Since right now you have an embedding vector in your database, then you can try to process it, and then a lot of time you want to measure similarity between 2 vectors. So cosine similarity is the most popular algorithm to do that right now. So there are several different ones. For example, the Manhattan distance, the Cartesian distance. So, and we implement the calculation function for U, just called cosine similarity, to compare two vectors. And I make some illustration here in 2 dimensions. I apologize, I'm not able to draw a 1536 dimension for you. So I will just use, just like you learn in probably in high school. So for similar vectors, theta is close to 0. The cosine similarity will close to 1. That means they are very similar, or could be identical. And for orthogonal vectors, theta close to 90 degrees, the cosine similarity will be close to 0. For opposite vectors, theta close to 180 degrees, the cosine similarity will be close to -1. So simply put, the Gentleman range for cosine similarity you expect from the calc function is between -1 and 1 inclusively. And we made a decision for you. The only normalized vectors stored in the FileMaker database. And let me explain why we make this decision, the scientific evidence of this. So if you don't, not familiar with the math formula, don't worry. I'm not going to give you a quiz, but I just want to explain why we make that decision for you. If you disagree, feel free to talk to me. Yeah. So for the denominator, you see the summation I from 1 to n, and it sum up the a sub I square and make a square root of it. So what it does, this complicated calculation is to calculate the length of vector A. And if the vector A is a normalized vector, after all this calculation, the result is 1. Right? And the same thing for vector B. And remember I told you that OpenAI all return normalized vector. And majority of LLM provider give you normalized vector. So why I need to waste your computer power and energy to do this calculation? The value I already know. And the 1 times 1 and divide it. Right? So we can save that. Right? So just calculate the top part, the A sub I times B sub I, and sum it up from I equal to 1 to n. Mathematically, this one is so-called a dot product or dot score. So there are another one like a cross product, but cosine similarity need a dot product. But think about that. Even that one, for OpenAI case, just a simple cosine similarity between two vectors, it needed to make 1536 multiplication and 1535 addition. And you think about it, if you want to do this for all your records, you might have 1 million records. So that could be also tons of calculation. So for that, we try to use hardware accelerator if your computer device has. So for example, if you have a AVX2 from Intel or AMD, we will try to use AVX2. And if you have a AVX512 from Intel, we will try to use AVX512. And if you use ARM64 with Neon, we will try to use Neon. If you don't have this, don't worry, it still works, just slower. But once you upgrade, you will faster. Okay, so the next topic is semantic search. Since right now you have embedding vectors and you have this cosine similarity, so we can use that one to do the semantic search. So semantic search is more than keyword search. It's based on the meaning of the natural language. And remember the cosine similarity compared to two vectors. And these vectors are from LLM. So that one can tell the meaning difference between two texts. So we use the cosine similarity for the contextual reference. And a lot of the time, you probably say you use the FileMaker Pro or Go and connect to server. So the server basically on remote side. And when you want to do the cosine similarity, the Jericho engine protocol will check whether it's favorable to perform some semantic search on server side or client side. So, for example, if the server is not overloaded, say the CPU usage is under 25%, and you do have a lot of records, and majority of them are not downloaded yet. So it will implicitly perform that remotely for you to get the semantic search. Otherwise, you download all the record into your local machine and perform that. And here is the example of the semantic search script step. So this one, actually this one we just recently updated according to early ETS feedback. So let me just read in English. That probably it looks complicated, but not really complicated. So what this one is looking semantic search for movie about monsters for all record on the movie, the binary embedding vector, and I'm looking for the top 5. Right. So previously we only can specify a text and to perform semantic search on certain embedded vectors, but according to the suggestion is sometimes you already get the embedding vector, so you know this is the pattern I'm looking for. I have embedding vector. Then why I need to generate embedding vector for this pattern again? So that's the reason you see the first one, the query text about, and the second account name just like you saw before, and third one the model is because for embedding vector. So for OpenAI, I use the text embedding 8.002. And pay attention, that model needs to be the same model used to bulk embedding or embedding for your record in the table. And the text is quite straightforward. So I'm looking for movie about monsters. The specified record will have 2 choices. You can choose to do a semantic search on the whole table, all records of the table, or you can do that for a current font set. So if you have font set, you have million records, you already narrow down the font set to maybe 200, right? There's no reason you need to perform on the million record again. And the target field, basically the field which you generated embedding vector before, and return count, we just say that. So here, if you click the parameter, you will see the option for you. So specify record, you can pick either all records or current font set. And specify target field, you basically specify the field which you already have the embedded vector generated. So you can try that. If the embedding vector is on container field in binary format, it will much faster. And text format still works, but slower. The return count, you specify a number for the return count. So like a 5, I specify, in the case, it's top 5. And you also can specify the condition for cosine similarity. But the default one is greater than, and you can pick a greater than or equal, less than or equal, or even simply equal. And the cosine similarity, you also can specify the threshold you want. So say maybe you want to specify 0.9 for really close. And on the other hand, if you want to check outliner, the anomaly detection, you might be want to set the minus 0.9, not minus 0.8. Okay, so here is a quick demo about semantic search. So I have more than 12,000 records for movie database, and each one have the description of the movie. So the plot field basic description. I generate both the text format embedding and binary format embedding. You don't need to do both. So I do that for testing and for illustration purpose. So you can see the description describe the movie, and some of them actually are not in English. Okay, so because I already have the embedding, so I can use a script to perform the semantic search. So for this simple script, basically I'm looking for movie about cars and on the binary field, and I'm looking for top 5. I also calculate the millisecond spent doing this semantic search. This was done on the M1 Max MacBook Pro. Okay, so let's click it, and you can see that's a finish in the 0.9557 second. Thank you. And you can see that the thing, if you use the regular expression over keyword search, you cannot find it. Right, like a driverless taxi driver. Okay, yeah. So that's it for demo. So the next topic is the retrieval augmented generation, the RAG. So this is to chat with document, and we implement the RAG as a server. So RAG itself is a server, and you can have RAG on the same machine of your FileMaker database server or on a different machine. So say that in the development that I have RAG server, FileMaker database server, and the FileMaker Pro. Even debug version, I can run it without problem on M1 Max Pro. And it will allow user to ask questions to the knowledge document, just similar to the chat with database. And the good thing about RAG is it eliminates the LLM hallucination. So if it doesn't know, it just say I don't know. So that's a good thing about it. However, if there are too many don't knows, right, that is not that useful. So we create a script step so the admin can dynamically on demand probably to solve those FAQ, and you can update it with either plain text or with a PDF file. So here is a script step. So in LLM RAG space add. Again, the first one is account name, and because this is talking to my RAG server, not to GPT, and so I have an account RAG point to my local host, and the space ID I set it for the Bento knowledge. We used to have a product called Bento, and you're probably familiar with it, and. The data source you can specify from the text directly or from a PDF file. So right now the file at this moment we only support PDF. Okay, so here is the standard script step, the file dialog. Okay, so the next demo I'm going to show you is how to start this RAG server quickly. On the left-hand side, here is the README file we included in the server package. So it documented each detailed step to set up and run the RAG server. On the right-hand side, the top one is server installation on Mac, and you can see the directory structure. And the lower corner actually is the terminal window. We'll show you the progress of the setup. So we use Conda to set up the environment for Python. So Conda and the virtual environment are the two popular ones to encapsulate the Python environment. And so here we just simply use the Conda to create workspace. And then we install the Python 3.9 for the workspace. And then we install the dependency library. Dependency library take a little bit time to install. It takes like a couple of minutes, but that depends on your computer and those network speed. However, this is just done once. Once that's done, you finish it one time. It capture in the Conda environment. The next time you can just simply start it. You will be quick. So after you install that, before you run the server, I suggest you open the settings file and change your setting according to your need. So I highly recommend you turn on the PKI verification SSL if you run the server on a different machine, even for development. That's a general security purpose. And if you have PDF file in the folder of the RAG server, it can load it when it starts. So you will generate the embedding vectors and cache them and ready to answer questions. Okay, so now the server is starting. So since the IHE server is up and running, I'm going to open the FileMaker Pro to chat with the IHE server. So let's take a look at the script there. So you can see the similar one, but the account LLM account is IHE pointing to my local host. And I can start asking questions about Bento. Say, Bento was designed for Mac OS, and we can continue ask more Bento questions. And I ask how many library templates the Bento comes with. So we find out there are 20 library templates in the Bento. Now I'm going to ask him something totally unrelated. I'm asking who is the best basketball player. Well, Bento definitely done. You're right. So now we want to teach it. So that like we add the Michael Jordan is the best player. So let's add in the, you can see from the thumbnail window. And when we ask question again, you say, oh, Michael Jordan is the best basketball player. So when you set up the IHE, you have space. Actually, well, you can put your name. You are your best. Just don't add my name. Okay, so next topic is open source LLM. And so there are a lot of open source LLM, and some of them are pretty good. So if you are interested, the huggingface.com is a hub. So it has actually you have more than LLM models. You have a lot of models and also with a lot of data set. So good thing about that is with the data set, you can fine-tune LLM for your special purpose. Okay, so there are several kinds of LLM model you might interested from open source. The first one probably is a sentence transformer. What sentence transformer does is to generate the embedding vector for you. So we have tested several of them, and these two seems to be good. But the first thing is, remember I told you that we need to use normalized embedding vector. We only want to store normalized embedding vectors in FileMaker database. So please get a model with a normalized embedding vector. Most of them are, and some of them have option. If they are option, you check the option. You only want normalized embedding vectors. And another thing to pay attention is the maxima sequence. For example, the OMini LM L12V2, the maxima sequence is 256 characters. What that means is if you send a text more than 256 characters to generate embedding vector, it will truncate anything after 256. So you need to pay attention about that. Otherwise, you might get some unexpected results. And another thing is the size of LLM. So for this one is 120 megabytes. And the second one, the multi-QA mini LM L6 cosine V1, the maximum sequence doubles is 512. Actually, the demo I show you, the IHE server is using this open source LLM instead of OpenAI. If you want to use OpenAI, you just switch in the setting. You will use OpenAI. But since this one is pretty good, it's useful. Right. So, but however, that's up to you for choice. And this model actually is a fine-tuned version for cosine similarity, and the size is smaller. So the both model actually the embedding vector dimension size is 384. So it's much smaller than OpenAI. We just like the IHE server, we provide the document, the README document, also the Python script. So if you follow it, it should be easily, quickly bring up your own sentence transformer for either of these model, or you find a newer model better fits for you. And here is a link that if you are interested to bring up your own sentence transform server, the expert.net has a pretty good document to compare the current available sentence transformers. So because time limited, so I don't demo this one. Okay. Yeah. Another kind of LLM in my interest in to set up is like OpenChat 3.5. So which is a leaderboard LLM for chat and converting natural language to SQL. So normally the 7 billion parameter one is good enough for general purpose. And according to its evaluation on the Hugging Face side, when SQL evolved, the OpenChat 3.5 outperformed GPT 3.5 triple, but of course not as good as GPT-4. However, it needs high-end CUDA support. So if you don't have high-end CUDA support, first, if you don't have enough memory, when you try to run, it will give you error out of memory. And if you have enough memory, but still not enough CUDA, I mean the NVIDIA GPU support, then the response could be slow. And again, we provide the README document, also have a Python script, so to help you to start your own OpenChat server if you like. So because time limit, so I don't demo this to you. So, yeah. Okay, so we have went through quite a lot. Remember in the beginning, we talking about the key takeaways. So you have seen the chat with database from the app assistant. And technically speaking, you can directly use the LLM prompt to chat with database if you like. And you see the embedding vectors. So you know how to get the binary, how to use the LLM embedding or LLM book embedded to save the embedding vector into a FileMaker database. So if you create a field of text field, it will be text format. If you create a field of container field, it will be binary format. And you know how to do semantic search. Basically, just use LLM semantic search. And you can give it the text against a table with embedding vector, or you can give it an embedding vector, a pattern with the embedding vector to compare. And you know how to set up the RIG server and then have it cache the PDF file to answer questions. And in case if you want update anytime, you can use the FileMaker script to add new information into it. Okay, so please join our CLAIRE community to participate in our AI discussion. Together, let's build incredible things. Thank you. So I cannot wait to see innovative solution from you. So thank you. So now for question and answer. So any questions? Yeah.
Any questions? Back here.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm going to pass over.
Thank you. Very nice. To vectorize your data, is there any way to do that locally without having to send it to a service?
Yes. So if you want to get embedding vector data, embedding vector, right? So if you run the sentence transformer, right? Remember I showed you the sentence transformer. You bring up the sentence transformer server locally, then you can just talk to it. You create an account to point to your local host endpoint. Then you will be able to get the embedding vector.
But I thought the vectorization also had to do with what model you were using.
Yes. Remember I show you the RIG, right? The RIG, the vector actually is from the particular sentence transform model. So it's fixed. So that's the reason I suggest don't mix embedding vector from different LLM. Yeah.
We had one back here. I'm gonna run back.
Thank you, Ronnie.
White.
The FileMaker data, is that limited to a file on the server? Can you pull from multiple files on the server? Can you source from multiple servers?
You mean FileMaker server, right? Yes.
Right, but when you run this in the file, right? Like there's a table and it has right with the data to work on.
Yes.
Can that be located anywhere, any server?
Yeah.
Multiple servers?
So you mean the where to store embedding vector? Yeah. Yes. So you specify as long as you can access the table and you create a field in there, so you should be able to store there.
Okay. So any server, any table, as long as you specify.
Right. And as long as you have privilege and you can access it.
Of course. Can you specify multiple tables?
Not right now. Multiple table, you need to specify one by one. If you have a special case, there's no. Thank you.
That's it for now.
So, any more questions?
Do we have time for more? Any other question? One right here.
Would it be possible to set up a RAG server like in-house to test this without having to have subscriptions to an outside LLM? Like if you want to test it in-house.
I see. So the one I show you, actually, I set up locally on my MacBook Pro, and the only thing I use outside is I use the GPT-4 to do the summary or final answer. So put this way, say if you have you say you bring up your own OpenChat server in-house, then you don't need to send to GPT-4 for summary. You just send to the OpenChat 3.5. Yeah. So basically, what I show you, the embedded method already get locally from my own open source sentence transformer. Yeah. Thank you.
One more.
When do we get it?
So actually, we have an ETS version, and that's our PM running. Is that running?
You gotta bribe me. Just kidding. No, we're like Wade said, we're testing all these out. These are things that we're trying to figure out what's the easiest way to bring all these technologies to you in the most FileMaker way possible. Right, so we're experimenting. These guys have done, Wade and his team has done an amazing job. This is a lot of work, and honestly, in a short amount of time. So I think it's really amazing what they're doing. Again, we're trying to bring it as quickly as possible, as best to you. So join the group if you want to test this out.